Hey folks, Matt Dunn, lead penetration tester with Raxis here. And now that we've covered the basics of cross-site scripting in an earlier video, we're going to discuss two more advanced techniques. One of them will be to evade basic filters that some applications may use to protect against cross-site scripting. And the second is going to be side-loading cross-site scripting payloads from third-party sources. We'll walk through an example of each, and then we'll talk about remediations that cover both of these more advanced techniques. We'll start with the same blog example that we used in the last video, except this time there's added protections built in to help remove malicious content. So we'll start with the payload that we used last time, just a basic script tag with an alert in it, and we'll see that the script part of the tag is removed. However, this is not necessarily a complete remediation for cross-site scripting because there are other tags that can run malicious JavaScript in them, such as image tags or A tags. One of my favorites is to use the image tag. So we'll demonstrate how this still works even with removing script tags. So we'll use source equals x, which is obviously incorrect. That's not a valid image source. And then we'll use the onError tag to run JavaScript when this eventually errors. We'll submit this, and we see that our payload is executed when the image fails to load. So the reason that this works is because only the script tags are being removed, so it is an incomplete remediation. Another technique that penetration testers and other bug bounty hunters will use in trying to find cross-site scripting is something called a polyglot. Polyglots use multiple types of techniques all in one payload to try and suss out valid cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. Because they use multiple techniques, multiple tags, and work in multiple contexts, they're good for quick testing when you have to test a wide area of inputs. We'll post one polyglot here just to show that it will still work. And you'll see that there's many different types of payloads in here. We'll see one that uses an SVG tag with an onload and on mouse over alert. There's one that uses obfuscated JavaScript using different capitalization to see if they're only removing lowercase, and you'll see other types of tags as well. We submit this as a payload, and we'll again see that the alert box is executed. So in summary, we need to make sure we're doing a complete remediation, encoding all malicious characters, including quotation marks, open and close brackets, and others that could be used in payloads. This next technique is something I call side-loading content. It is basically importing third-party content in order to use cross-site scripting payloads. These are often not checked by filters or sanitization processes. In this example, I'm going to use CVE 2021-27956, which is a cross-site scripting vulnerability I discovered in Zoho's Manage Engine Active Directory Self-Service Plus. For this example, we're going to be importing an Active Directory user that has malicious content in its user details. In this case, we have this XSS test user that has this malicious script content as their email. Obviously, this is not a valid email. However, Active Directory allows you to use any content in these fields, which makes it a good cross-site scripting payload vector. So now that we've created this user with some malicious details, including that JavaScript payload, we'll import this into AD Self-Service Plus. We'll add a new technician. We'll just make them an operator from our domain. And we'll add a couple just to make sure that the search is working. The technicians get added, and we see that their usernames are here as well as the domain name and their role. We'll go to the employee search option, and just to test that it works, we'll search for the Kopaka user, and we'll see that this name pulls up and there's no details in here for now. Now that we've shown we can search for the users we imported, we'll search for our XSS user with the malicious JavaScript payload. We see that the user populates, but this time the email field does not appear blank, but it also does not include our content in the box. And this is because that script content is loaded inline as valid HTML tags and not as those letters and characters. When we click more, we see that the alert box pops up with the content we put in there, namely side-loaded content. This is an example of where, while some content is escaped in this application, content from an unlikely source, such as Active Directory, is not properly escaped and sanitized, and so these HTML tags are loaded as valid HTML and then get executed.
Remediation to these techniques is essentially a more complete form of remediation for normal cross-site scripting. These vulnerabilities and techniques only succeed because of an incomplete remediation. Removing specific tags is not sufficient because there can always be new tags where JavaScript can be inserted into. Additionally, third-party content needs to also be sanitized because it is not controlled by the application. Any data that a user or other users could edit or manipulate needs to be sanitized. Otherwise, it could be at risk from a malicious user inputting cross-site scripting payloads, as seen in the previous example. So remember, always sanitize your data regardless of the source that it comes from, and especially if it's user controlled.